Hey, this is Emily from Swan Life Barbecue. Today we're cooking a smoked sweet potato pie. We're going to be cooking today on an Outlaw Patio Smoker. Even though we're cooking on a stick burner today, this recipe can be easily done on any style smoker or grill or even just in your oven. This is sure to be a hit at your next holiday party. Let's get started. To get this Outlaw Patio Smoker fired up, we're going to start by using Royal Oak all natural briquettes. First, you're going to fill your fire basket up, put your tumbleweeds underneath, get it lit, open your vents, and then you're going to let it start coming up to temp. All right, so to get our pie started, what we're going to do is get our sweet potatoes on the smoker. So this is about 2 pounds of sweet potatoes, and all I'm going to do is cut them in half. Once we get them cut in half, I'm just going to take a fork and poke a few holes all the way around it. That's just gonna help the smoke kind of get in there and really get these potatoes tasting good. Now we got them in our half pan. We're just gonna take a stick of butter and we're gonna put that in there too. So I'm just gonna cut it into a few pieces. And now we're ready to get them on the smoker. So we're running this pit about 350 degrees today. You want to make sure that you try to maintain that temperature as well as run a good clean fire. So we're going to go ahead and get the sweet potatoes on. So we're going to put them right here, a little bit past the middle. We're going to get it shut down. So these sweet potatoes are going to take about an hour. We're going to come back and check on them in about 30 minutes. We just want to make sure they get good and tender all the way through before we take them off. So we're going to get another stick of pecan on here. Pecan just gives a really good mild smoke flavor and it's going to complement this pie really well. We'll get the door shut. We're going to check on it in about 30 minutes. So one of the first steps you're going to do when making this pie is brown the butter. As you know, at Swan Life headquarters, we love brown butter, so that's going to be one of the elements of this pie. We're going to brown 1 stick of butter, and once it reaches that really caramelly amber color and it gets that good nutty smell, you're going to go ahead and get it up. Now our pro tip here, I have a glass bowl lined with foil. Once you are ready to take your brown butter up, you're just gonna pour it into that foil lined bowl and let it cool and get it in the fridge. And then later when you have to cut it to get it into your pie, it's just gonna make the whole process a lot easier. All right, so we're gonna check on these sweet potatoes. It's been about 30 minutes. We're just gonna kind of give them a shake. We're gonna get them turned over, rolled around in this butter some. Get the ends. They're starting to get tender, but they're still pretty hard. So we're gonna let them keep going and we'll come back and check on them here in about another 30 minutes. So our sweet potatoes are almost ready to come off the smoker. So now we've got to get our pie crust ready. Today we're going to use the store-bought pie crust. This is just a refrigerated pie crust that you get over by the canned biscuits at the grocery store, and we've let it set out and come to room temperature about 15 minutes, and you just want to do this so it's easier to manipulate and so it doesn't tear. So I'm using a store-bought pie crust for simplicity and time today, but I'm going to show you a little technique to help you make your store-bought pie crust look a little more fancy. And so we're just going to get our pie crust lined in our pan. And this is the time in which you want to make whatever designs around the edge of your pie crust. Right now, I'm just gonna actually tuck it under and kind of crimp it, and that's really gonna be it. We're gonna get this out on the smoker so it can start to brown while our sweet potatoes are cooling. And then once it's slightly brown, we're gonna get it off and put our filling in. So it's been about 1 hour and 15 minutes. We're gonna give these sweet potatoes a check to see how good and roasted they are. So the skin's gonna be a little tough, but once you get in there, you see that the fork just falls right in there. They're good and tender. They're ready to come off. So we're gonna go ahead and get these off, and we're gonna get our pie crust on. I'm laying a piece of foil down just simply to protect my glass pie plate from getting so dirty. And we're just gonna let that go and start to brown and cook a little bit. We don't want it to cook very long because we don't want it to get too brown right off the bat. So we're gonna keep a really close eye on it and come back and check it in a few minutes. All right, so let's check on this pie shell. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it out. As you can see, this is now just starting to brown around the edges and it's starting to bubble up in the middle. So we wanna go ahead and get it off and get it inside so we can fill it, because when you get it back on here, it's gonna continue to brown around the edges and we don't want it to get too dark. So we've gotten our pie shell off and we're letting it cool a little bit. Now it's time to make the fill-in to our pie. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna scoop out the inside of the sweet potatoes. Because this was the cut side, I'm just gonna lightly trim the edge of this because it can be a little tough. We're not cutting a whole lot off, just that outer crust. And then we'll take a spoon and just scoop it out into the bowl. You want to get as much of the sweet potato out as you can. Okay, we're just gonna repeat that process for all of these. It's okay if a little bit of that butter drips in there, that's just gonna make it taste a lot better. So now we're ready to make our filling. We have our sweet potatoes ready to go. The first thing we're gonna do is incorporate our brown butter. So we're gonna remove the foil from the bowl. And all we have to do is lay it out and it's ready to go. So I'm just gonna kind of cut it into chunks. And our sweet potatoes are still warm, so it's gonna help to melt that butter. And then I have my hand mixer here. We're just gonna mix it all together until the butter is all mixed in the sweet potatoes. We're just going at a low speed right now. There's no reason to go fast. We just wanna make sure all the sweet potatoes get broken up really good and that butter gets mixed in. So now our butter's all mixed in and our sweet potatoes are broken down really good. We're gonna add the rest of our ingredients. So we're gonna start with, I have a half a cup of brown sugar and a quarter of a cup of white sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of allspice, and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. And this is where it really gets different. This is a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now, this is your decision how much you want to add in. A quarter of a teaspoon is fine, a half a teaspoon is fine. If you have someone that you know that's sensitive to the spice, you may just want to leave it out. The recipe is delicious without it as well. We're gonna get those spices mixed in. All right, once we have those mixed in, we're gonna go ahead and add our wet ingredients. So we have 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 2 tablespoons heavy whipping cream, and then a half a cup of sweetened condensed milk. Now we'll get those mixed in. Now make sure to scrape down your edges so everything can get mixed in good. Give it one more little mix. Looks like it's good and mixed in, so now we're ready to get it into our pie shell. So now we're gonna get our pie crust filled. So you're just gonna pour it all in there and kind of smooth it out. So now I'm gonna show you a trick on how to make your pie look super fancy without a whole lot of work going into it. So this is actually a pie crust cutter. You could use a cookie cutter or whatever you wanted to make designs, but you're gonna take the other pie crust that comes in your box and you're just gonna cut little designs, and this has a little stamp, so it'll stamp the veins into the leaf, and it just pops out and you have a cute little leaf. I have a little bit of an egg wash here. It's just 1 egg mixed with about a tablespoon of water, so I'm just gonna put a little dab in the back. That'll help it stick to the crust, and you're just gonna lay it out. And so we're gonna do that, and you can do as many as you want or as few as you want. And you're just gonna keep doing this until you have however much of your pie covered that you want. So now that we've gotten all of our leaves around the edges, it looks so pretty. We're gonna take our egg wash and we're just gonna go along the edge of all the leaves. This is just gonna help give it a nice brown, even color all the way around. So again, my egg wash is just 1 egg mixed with about a tablespoon of water. And we're just gonna lightly brush it over all the leaves. So all the egg wash is on, now we're ready to go put it on the smoker. So our smoker's still running about 350 degrees. We're gonna go ahead and get our pie on. We're gonna stick it right there in the middle. We're gonna let it go for about 50 to 55 total minutes. You wanna keep a really close eye. You wanna come check it about every 20 minutes. You don't want that crust to get too brown. So we're gonna keep coming back to check it. If our crust starts to get too brown, all we're gonna do is cover it with a little bit of foil. But keep an eye on it and we'll be back to check it in about 20 minutes. All right, so we're about halfway through the cook. Let's take a look and see what it looks like. Oh man, that is starting to look so good. So as you can see, it's starting to get really brown around the edges, but it's not quite done, and I'm not really worried about how brown it's getting. I want it to keep getting brown. I want all those leaves to get nice and crispy looking. So we're gonna let it keep going. All right, so let's check on this pie. Oh my goodness, that is looking so good. So it's nice and brown around the edges. What we're looking for is basically where it's set around the edges and still a little jiggly in the middle. So you can kind of see it's a little jiggly. So we're gonna go ahead and get it off. That radiant heat is gonna help to cook the rest of that in the middle, but it's gonna be good and creamy. So what we're gonna do is get it inside. We want it to cool all the way down to room temperature, and then we want to go ahead and get it in the refrigerator. You want to serve this cool or cold. That's the best way. That's the way I like to eat it. So it does take a little bit of time to make sure that you get it cooled down all the way. This is a really great recipe the same day. It's even better the next day. So I like to go ahead and make this pie ahead of time and serve it the next day because it's even better. So we're going to get this inside, get it cooled off, and then we'll be ready to try it. So we let our pie cool. Just as a quick recap, we made a smoked sweet potato pie on the Outlaw Patio Smoker. We cooked it at about 350 degrees for about 50 minutes. We kept a close eye on our crust because we didn't want it to get too brown, and that is a good looking pie. So now we're gonna get ready to cut it. So for the purpose of time, we didn't let our pie set up quite as long as we wanted to. Ideally, this is best done the day before and left in the fridge overnight. While I was baking the pie, I made a little whipped cream. This is basically 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla, whipped until stiff peaks are formed. And it just pairs so perfectly with our sweet potato pie. So now it's time to taste it. Oh my gosh, that pie is so good. That cayenne pepper really comes in at the end, so you get a little heat, but it is so good. Let's add a little bit of that whipped cream. I really think I could sit here and eat that whole pie. That is so good. That's a wrap for us today at Swan Life. Thank you for checking this video out. As always, like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions, shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll see y'all next time.